Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to another panel series organized by the team from SEALNet, Projek Bina Ukhwah. So, for this evening series, we will be sharing on Rethinking Empowerment Panel Series, self-empowerment through volunteerism during this global pandemic, as you can see in the title. So, as we all know, most projects have an on-ground in terms of volunteering as well as organizing activities or workshops. But difficult for everyone to have an on-ground approach with the recent guidelines that we must follow right now. So for tonight's panel series, we have invited 4 lovely panelists from Brunei and Kenya. So they will be sharing with us tonight on how they have kept themselves and others around them motivated and empowered through volunteerism during this uncertain time. So for joining us for tonight will be Siti Raima, the chairperson of Asakusa. And then we have Muhammad Noor Afiq, the secretary of Bina Ukhwah Home Betterment Program Unit, Asha Jafar, the founder of Kibra Food Drive, and then Shauki Satya, the president of Society for Community and Outreach and Training, short for SCOT, and Yang Berhormat Khairunisa Ashari, the co-founder and community engagement director from Green Brunei. So welcome everyone. So before we start, I would like to remind everyone to ensure that their mic is muted while the panelists are speaking, and also be respectful towards each other as well during our Q&A session. Also, you may utilize the raise hand function when we are in the Q&A session. You can find the raise hand function in the participants icon, and then there will be your raise hand function as shown in the slide. All right. So for tonight, the panelists will be covering on how what are the main challenges to keep oneself empowered during this pandemic. And since social gathering and interaction is kept minimal, how did they manage to adapt and maintain self-empowerment through volunteerism during this global pandemic? And did their goals and approach to keep empowerment change? So without further ado, I would like to invite our first panelist, Siti Raima from Asakusa to share on her experience. So Raima, the floor is yours.
Okay, hi everyone. So I just go to the questions. So my main challenge was time. As I am a student and also a part-timer, managing my time was quite difficult for me because when COVID-19 starts in Brunei, we need to adapt to new norm, especially our national education system going fully online, which means we will not be having physical classes, but more courseworks, online tests, online exams. To cope with the situation, I had to stop my project for a while to make room for my studies. At that time, I learned that delaying something is okay as long as you keep on pursuing in what you believe. You have to go with your own flow and don't rush in doing something good to the society. With the COVID-19 pandemic canceling many in-person or community volunteer opportunities, there are other ways to make an impact. So I was thinking, what should I do to help others during the pandemic? What can I do as a youth to help during this crisis? And what other alternative can I make? So there's a lot of thinking was made. I know there's many youth out there who wanted to contribute, but they have no idea and don't know what to do. Same goes as me. So instead of waiting for volunteering opportunities from others, I organize a project where I can open volunteerism for other NGOs, other youth out there. So of course there is limitations such as people saying I shouldn't do it because it is risky, it is dangerous to do it at this time and I should do it in another date when it is safer. Things like that puts me in dilemma whether I should do it or not. So I seek advice from my family, and Alhamdulillah they support me in every decision I made, and of course they gave advices along the way. Volunteerism is still happening no matter the time, the place, whether there is pandemic or no pandemic. But it is being reshaped to meet the challenges of today. It is more complex. Is it more complex? Of course. Are there volunteers out there ready to contribute? Without questions. Another challenge for me was to think of approaches to ensure youth that it is okay to volunteer even though it is risky during this pandemic. I had to make sure that they believe in me and understand that I really value their health and safety. Efforts were taken such as maintaining social distancing and respecting national and local guidelines. To build trust from volunteers uh, is everything during this current situation. We shouldn't be holding back from helping people. We need to try to know to answer our own questions. We need to have our self fight with ourselves mentally and emotionally because people out there need our help, especially during this crisis. We need to think more on them than on us. So to maintain self-empowerment, when social gathering and interaction is kept minimal, comes from our own determination and strong will to do something by altering self-perceptions to allow us to build confidence and self-esteem and to learn new skills. We can use our extra time to explore on ourselves and find something new in you. This helps us to counteract negativity by producing more positive thinking. I don't want youth to think that they are worthless and are not needed for the country. So providing volunteerism organized by a youth can shorten the gap and make the volunteers comfortable while volunteering. It also can help the individual to feel that they are doing something at a time of crisis and enables them to cope with the sad accounts they hear daily in the media. Also, a sense of solidarity can also be established through joining others in contributing towards a common purpose. As a leader, to keep my team and volunteers motivated is crucial. Without them, this project will not be going anywhere. And we need to play our role as a leader to show them that volunteering is not all just for the sake of reward, but it is our responsibility to help others with sincerity. So I just want to say to youth out there to never stop believing in yourself. If you feel like you wanted to do something good to others, do not ever hesitate to do so. But uh, you never know your small action means a world to them. So a small impact is still an impact. So don't be afraid to do something out of your comfort zone because trust me, in the end, it is worth it. Seeing their smiles, laughters, and happy tears is enough for us, which means you are already a successful youth in creating a better world. I always keep in mind to make my weaknesses as my strength, so don't stop, never give up, and always push yourself like there is no tomorrow. That is all from me.
That was a very inspiring sharing, right, Raima. So thank you for sharing your experiences and your challenges. Yes, we have to find ways to adapt to the situation right now in terms of volunteering. We have to try to do whatever we can, and we should go for it if we have the ideas to do when we think about something great that could help someone and not just think about the reward but also the experience and what we can get out from it. So that was a very inspiring experience from Raima. So next up, I would like to invite our next panelist, Muhammad Noor Afik from Projek Bina Ukhwah, to share his experience on his challenges and how the goals have his goals have changed and approach has changed, and how did he manage to adapt and maintain self-empowerment through volunteering. So Afik, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening, everyone. So, talking about self-empowerment during this global pandemic, I think the main challenge during this global pandemic is trying to stay at home because I'm an active person. I usually go out for activities, not necessarily for my association. I also student representative council. So I usually on the go, usually in the office. However, during back in March 9, when first COVID-19 patient was diagnosed in Brunei, so everything dramatically changed, and there were no physical classes, and it affected me in many ways, especially my motivation. It was really, I was really unproductive at home. I usually, if I do works, I usually go to the productivity locations such as eye center. So that's the venue where I usually go when I'm doing my works. And since there are no classes, we cannot meet up due to the pandemic. Um, I did not have the opportunity to meet my friends, which adversely affected my social life. And for my association, it has narrowed down the choices for my for the projects. So I believe many projects that have designed by different institutions or NGOs were affected. And as for Projek Bina Ukhwah, it was pretty difficult to look for collaborators and sponsors as many businesses were badly affected due to the COVID-19. However, how did I overcome this is because the main thing is I always feel indebted with with Brunei, so that was the drive for me to continue volunteering regardless of what. So whenever I see a good opportunity, I will consider and commit to it. For example, the Brunei National Volunteers, I participated as well, and also I got the energy, the positive energy from my Bina Ukhwah committees, the friends, my colleagues. So we actually designed the Raya Bersamamu and also Jelajah Ramadan. We had two projects recently. So when we proceed the project, Alhamdulillah, we got the support from Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport to proceed with the project. And we got the support from Ministry of Home Affairs as well. And with minor changes. So we comply with the guidelines set by the Ministry of Health. And also it is also reinforced, the empowerment is also reinforced when I think back, the underprivileged families were affected by this global pandemic, especially those who are working daily payment. For example, in the tourism industry, so they are badly affected by that. So they don't have income to actually earn during this global pandemic. So that would push me to proceed with the project Jelajah Ramadan, which we provide in-kind donations to the underprivileged families. And then also, I would like to quote from the book I read, which is the book's name, The Power of Giving. The Power of Giving says that the positive impact of giving remains long till the day we die, as we continue to live on in the memories and good feelings of our friends, family, and the community. All else is forgotten. That's why I think that is the the drive for me to continue giving hands and empower myself to involve proactively in the community. Oh, I would also like to share my slide from our previous involvement, community involvement. So, let me share. Okay. Can you guys see it? Okay, all right. So,
Yep.
hold on. Okay. So during April until March, we had a fourth Jelajah Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, we collaborated with 6 supermarkets in Brunei, and Alhamdulillah, we managed to get 13 sponsors supporting the cause. Then more than 90 volunteers participated in Projek Bina Ukhwah fourth Jelajah Ramadan, and we managed to reach 160 underprivileged families, inclusive from all 4 districts. And then the volunteers also get the opportunity to experience valuable adventures as an additional experiences during donation drive and expand awareness to the young volunteers with regards to the underprivileged life. And then we, for my unit, home betterment program unit, we had Raya Bersamamu, which we managed to renovate 2 selected houses from past PBU recipients, which still requires attention from PBU. And then for the underprivileged to prepare 8 celebrations. So we renovate their living room. Then 24 volunteers inclusive of PUHO Pro committees, Bina Ukhwah members and volunteers participated in this project. The number is pretty low because due to COVID-19, the safety precautionary measure. And Alhamdulillah, we got support by anonymous donors. So I think COVID-19 or this global pandemic taught me a lot in terms of adaptations, and also it challenged my time management as a student as well as a community worker, I would say. So yeah, I think that's all from me. So I give back the mic to you.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Afik, for the sharing. It was definitely a very inspiring one as well. What struck me when you quote, what struck me really hard was when you give the quote from the power of giving. The positive power of giving lives on until the day we die. Definitely, when we're in this field of volunteering, we have to always give back to the community. We have to think about how we can give back to the community that we grew up in, and how we can help each other to grow and develop together. Even during in this time when some part of the communities is most affected by the pandemic that's happening right now. Thank you, Afik, for sharing your experience again. So next up, we will be having our lovely panelists from all the way from Kenya. Her name is Asha Jafar, and she's the founder of Kibra Food Drive. So Asha, for this panel series, I would like you to share about your main challenges to keep yourself empowered during the pandemic. And since social gathering and interaction is kept to the minimum, how did you manage to adapt and maintain self-empowerment through volunteerism during this global pandemic? And did your goals and approach to keep empowerment change? So Asha, if you're ready, you may start. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So the Kibra Food Drive, we donate food to the underprivileged in Kibra. Kibra is the largest slum in Africa. And one of the things that keep us empowered is the fact that all of us were born and raised in Kibra. So there's actually, you feel a sense of you're working for a community and you're not working for like someone else. So that's where we get like our empowerment from, because we feel like, if we don't do this, if we don't give food to our community, who else will give food to them? and also like the fact that it's only youth-led, like only like youth who are working. We empower each other because also we are frustrated with the government, we're frustrated with the systems led by old people. So for us, it's like, do we keep complaining or do we empower ourselves and take leadership and not wait for the government to come and give food? So for me, like that's how we have empowered ourselves throughout. And you know, like as much as it's difficult to go out and like keep giving food every week without anyone helping you or advising you, it's just that every time we find ways to energize ourselves. There are like different ways. We either go for walks, we read, or we just have like sessions where we sit by ourselves as a team. And also, I think also working with the community is people give you inspiration all the time. Because if you're giving someone who did not have food for breakfast, they will obviously like talk nicely and say thank you. And those are the things that I think we get empowerment from. It's that I'm working for the community. So if the community is appreciating what I'm doing, then that's where I'm getting my empowerment from. I feel very lucky and happy. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Asha, for sharing to us. Definitely we have to do like as she said, we have to do something when the government and the system is not working. But despite that, we also have to initiate a change from the being youth ourselves as well, and also because we have to help the people's in need whenever we see something that we could help with. So thank you, Asha, for sharing your experience. So for our fourth panelist of the night will be Shalky from Scott. Shalky, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello? Is my camera on? Hello, hi.
Yes.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good evening, everybody. So, brief introduction on myself. My name is Ahmad Shauki bin Haji Satya. I am the president of Scott Brunei. Basically, what my organization does is we strive to become the catalyst for poverty eradication in Brunei. We're pretty, I guess, we're pretty old NGO. We've been here since 2011, and we've been pretty active in the past few years. So in regards to the question, the challenges that we faced in terms of empowerment during this pandemic and how we overcame it, I think before I go on to explain the actual challenges, during the pandemic, my organization, we did our own couple of initiatives as well. The first initiative that we did was the social kitchen. So basically what social kitchen was is we hired single mothers who currently, because of the pandemic, were unemployed. So we hired 2 single mothers to be our chefs. And then we crowdfunded from the public to have them order as much as they want. Order packaged meals to be donated to the frontliners, to underprivileged families, and also to anyone in quarantine. So yeah, that's basically what we did during the pandemic. And we also had the Ramadan charity drive where we went to underprivileged homes all over Brunei and provided them with groceries and necessities to ensure that they have a comfortable time during Ramadan, especially during this pandemic. So I'll have to agree with everybody that during the pandemic, it was quite challenging, not just for myself, but for my entire organization, because we had a timeline already set of what we wanted to do during the whole entire year. But similar to the first speaker, when the pandemic came, that like disturbed the whole flow of everything, and we had to shift things, and we had to adapt, and we had to ensure that what we're gonna do is complying to what the government has ensured for us to the guidelines. Yeah, we had to make sure that we follow the guidelines and that we weren't doing anything that could cause harm or risk to anyone. So personally, for me, when the pandemic came, I actually share the same sentiment as Afik, because one of the challenges that I faced was the fact that we had to stay at home. I'm also a student, and I'm used to being outside of home. Um, I'm used to going to meetings, going to university, and just doing things outside of home and being active outside of home. And my home is usually associated with rest. So when you're confined to your home and a place where it's so associated with rest, that's what you tend to do. You just tend to rest and you become lazy and complacent. So that was one of the struggles that I had to face, was how do I get myself out of that slump? I was in a mental, emotional, and physical slump where I just didn't feel like doing anything because I was home, and I felt guilty. But at the same time, I felt like this was a well-needed rest. So yeah, that was one of the challenges for me as an individual, being confined to a place that's so associated with rest. And I felt so comfortable, but I knew for a fact that this wasn't good, and I had to go out there despite the restrictions. I knew I had to do something. And one of the ways that I overcame this, and one of the ways that I empowered myself with this, was my team. I think one of the biggest solutions, I would say, overcoming the challenges during this pandemic are the people. Generally, the people around me. So the people here are my team members, those in Scott, the general public who supported the initiatives and who actually wanted to do their part as well as our beneficiaries. So Scott's been working with a lot of families in the past, and they reached out to us. They tell us, like, yeah, right now it's difficult. It's difficult for us because we can't go out. We can't find how do I say this in English? Bread. They can't find their daily pay because they usually sell vegetables, or they go out and find a way to earn their money for the day. But because of the pandemic, they're confined to their own homes as well. So they reached out to us, and it's something that we tend to forget sometimes. Like, yeah, it's difficult for me to be at home. It's difficult for everyone to be at home, but we tend to forget the people who were already at a disadvantage before the whole pandemic. And that was one of the things that encouraged my organization to actually work hard to do something during this whole crisis. The beneficiaries were definitely a driving force, the desire to help them out as much as we can through whatever initiative that we had at the time. And as well as the general public. So we had a lot of support. Like, the general feeling that you had during this pandemic was that despite the fact that everybody was not socializing and not connecting, it felt as if that was the time where everybody connected the most. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but yeah, it felt like everybody connected the most during that time because we all came together in solidarity to help fight this virus in any way that we can, be it by staying home or supporting the frontliners or doing our own initiatives. That itself was empowering to myself and my organization. Though it was tiring, though it was hard due to limitations, we kept that in mind. Like, why are we doing this and who are we doing it for? We're doing it for the beneficiaries. We're doing it for the frontliners to show our support. So I guess, in a nutshell, the challenges that we had were overcome by the people around us, our team, the Scott team, the beneficiaries, especially those who are going to be involved, and the general public. The general public were very supportive in this initiative. They supported us by purchasing our package meals, or even by volunteering from time to time. And yeah, it was difficult to have volunteers at the same time maintain social distancing, but due to the support of the ministry and the guidelines that they provided, we were able to find a way to adapt. So we were able to provide them with the proper PPE, and yeah, just the proper guidelines for us to really make sure that everybody was safe and sanitized. Yeah. So yeah, to summarize the answer, I guess it's generally the people. The people empowered us. They empowered us to help them. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my answer. Passing the floor back to you.
Wow, thank you, Shaki. That seems to make me reflect back to my own team as well. were quite similar in terms that we work with beneficiaries on ground, just different kinds of beneficiaries. Yeah, everything got kind of shifted when COVID-19 started in Brunei, and we have tons of restrictions that we have to follow, and everyone have to stay at home and social distance from each other, and it was hard to actually do actual volunteering on ground with so many people. But we gotta do what we gotta do when at times like this. And thankfully, we got the drive as well from our beneficiaries. We should always think how we can do something to help our beneficiaries, even though we can't always do the approach that we have done since before the pandemic. So thank you, Shauki, for sharing your experience on how you feel empowered and how your team are empowered as well during these challenging times. So now for our last panelist of the night, joining us is YB Karinisa from Green Brunei. So YB, the floor is yours.
Okay, is it okay?
Yeah.
All right, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are right now. Being the last panelist always has its disadvantage. The earlier panelists have shared wonderful stories and initiatives, and I would have to say that we share the same concerns, we share the same constraints as every other youth projects in the country. On our part, with Green Brunei, our strength lies in our numbers. We typically organize cleanups and tree planting events with volunteers usually amounting 100 and above. So it was really quite challenging for us to continue pursuing our environmental programs during this pandemic. So that means we had to do a lot of adjustments, being our first challenge. However, what we still stayed true is our intention to volunteer, our intention to give back to the community. So even though we were not able to run our typical programs, we were still able to give back, especially during this time when everybody's contribution is really, really appreciated. However big, however small, everyone has a role to play, even if it's just being socially responsible. On our part, we wanted to give back in any way that we can. So the first project that we did was actually just a very small initiative where we raised funds from our friends and families. We realized that during this pandemic, the people who suffer the most are companies, are small companies, people who run market, garai, and so forth. So one of the earlier projects that we did was using the funds raised from our friends and families. We purchased food from these vendors and then distributed them to frontliners and volunteers. We realized that small actions like that can also have a strong and positive impact to the community, because not only are we helping the vendors who are quite challenged during this time economically, but also at the same time providing some form of joy to the frontliners and volunteers. Our second project escalated quite high from there. We were contacted by one of the private companies in Brunei who asked us if we would like to volunteer to make face shields for frontliners, because we wanted to volunteer, but again, as the other panelists have said, it was quite it was really about identifying like what role can you play during this period. And we believe that, again, earlier on I mentioned how we have large numbers, and thankfully a lot of these volunteers they do want to participate. At first it was quite challenging because even though the youth themselves, they want to be part of the project, parents play also a very strong how do you put it, they were not very, they were quite reluctant to let their children participate as volunteers, because at the time it was also a lot of confusion about social gathering, and they were afraid that if their kids leave the house, they will bring back these they will actually be affected by they will actually be infected, even though we've already ensured that our volunteering space would be sanitized, and we would ensure that there's physical distancing, standing 1 meter between each other. But still, parents were very, very reluctant about letting their children participate. So the first few days, we struggled with the few volunteers that we have. But I think eventually, after running the program for a couple of days, more volunteers decided to sign up. So it was really good. So over 2 weeks, we were able, over 2 weeks, we were able to produce more than 20,000 face shields from scratch, and which were distributed to hospitals around the country, as well as a few went to schools as well. And then after that project was over, we ended up like perhaps similar to how the other panelists have shared. Like, we didn't really know what to do. I went back into some form of slump, because it's just so difficult to plan something during this pandemic. But somehow we got our motivation back, and then continued on by helping to distribute porridges, over 1,000 porridges to the villagers in Kampong Bokia, which is in the water village. And some of our members as well contributed via joining the national volunteering group called Sukarelawan Belia. So I guess on my part, it's all about us needing to learn how to adapt to the new normal, learning to work with the social and physical restrictions. And right now, what we are doing is to conduct a thrift market where we are raising funds for environment and mental health awareness. But of course, one of the biggest challenge I would say during this time is being an environmental organization. It's kind of difficult for us to work with a lot of disposables, of course, with the concerns on hygiene and so forth. We have to replace all of we typically use reusable items, but because of the pandemic, we were distributing food in single-use containers and so on. So that's definitely quite a challenge during this time, especially when we see all these plastic bottles, plastic containers, face masks, littering everywhere, and also polluting our rivers. So we did a cleanup in we also did a cleanup in Kampong Bokia, and it's one way for us to reduce the environmental impact during this time. So that's all.
All right. Thank you, YB, for sharing. Yeah, I've seen some of the projects on Green Brunei social media. It was definitely quite inspiring. Despite the restrictions, Green Brunei still managed to do so much to help the society, the community as well. Even little things like buying, like YB mentioned, buying food from vendors and distributing to frontliners and volunteers. That also helps the economy itself as well, and helping those small vendors and stalls to kind of boost up their business in this uncertain times. Thank you for sharing, YB Karanisa. So we will open the floor to the next session. So for the participants, you are able to use the raise hand function in the participants tab. And then you may press the raise hand function, and then we'll use the raise hand, and then we will call out your Zoom name before you unmute your mic, okay? All right, so any participants would like to ask questions? Any participants? Okay, Aida Tajuddin from Scott.
Hello. First of all, I'm very amazed by all the panelists' question. So this question was more onto Brunei's panel. Ever since the COVID-19, right? There is an announcement made by our Majesty saying that there is an allowance like gift to our frontliners, and the volunteers are also receiving them. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll continue. And then, do you think that maybe this allowances might change the value of volunteering in Brunei?
Oh, hello. How do you answer? Or do I just, am I supposed to talk?
Is my question clear anyway?
Yeah, I heard the
feel free
question.
feel free to answer, volunteer to answer, yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I wasn't going to volunteer. I was going to ask YB Kaidunisa to volunteer. Because, is she here? Hello?
Thank you for volunteering on my behalf, Shauki. That's very noble of you. I was actually afraid somebody would bring this up. Actually, like, remember earlier on how I mentioned that parents were very reluctant to allow their kids to volunteer. In fact, after the announcement came out, we actually had, I think, twice or three times the number of original signups. So that definitely helped to motivate volunteers to be more active during this pandemic. But to answer your question, honestly, it's not really it's really hard to say that with a very subjective mind, because one thing I've noticed is for the past few events that I've been on, we actually see a lot more volunteers who you can genuinely say they're not doing it for the financial rewards, definitely, because our events, at least with Green Brunei, it's not linked to the allowance that His Majesty is providing. So instead of like devaluing volunteers because devaluing the volunteerism spirit because of the financial reward, in fact, it actually shows that there are groups of volunteers who are really we call that they really do it purely because they want to volunteer and not because of the financial rewards. So it actually works both ways. One thing for sure is definitely, yes, you will see a lot of people doing it for the financial benefit, but it's not really a wrong thing to expect, because as young volunteers, we also understand that they do have financial restrictions. They're not working, they're unemployed, so it's quite it's quite normal to have them expect to it's quite sorry it's quite normal for them to it's not wrong for them to want financial reward, but to expect them for volunteering, that's probably the wrong way to think about that. But definitely, for sure, for our volunteers, it actually shows how much they really care about the cause, because they turn up regardless of it having any form of reward at all.
Thank you, IB, for answering. Does Ida, we hope that you got the answer that you're looking for. So anyone? Ajimuddin. We have Ajimuddin first.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Okay. First of all, thank you to all panelists for sharing all of your projects during this COVID moment. So my question is, I'm just wondering, like, I think this goes to all of the panelists as well, to probably share with us. Since I think Afik mentioned just now that so you have approval from the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, the Home Affairs, and also you work together with guidelines with the Ministry of Health. So with all these guidelines and precautions, what if, just a what if? So what happens, or what was the plan if there is a virus spread during the project? I mean, because we during the project there will be like a little bit like a gathering, a small mini gathering. So this just like what happens if, like, what was the plan if that happens? Like, is there any SOP that you actually had in place before executing the project? It's like the what's the risk management? Maybe you can share. That's all.
Thank you very much, Ajimuddin, for the question. Regarding we got the approval, and we also follow the guidelines set by the Ministry of Health. So regarding the risk management, we are especially the volunteers, because the volunteers we got from the public. So before the event, the project executed, we first asked all the committees, the volunteers, regarding their health. Have they ever been diagnosed with COVID-19, or have they ever get sick? So we ensure that first, and then if they are green, so they will proceed with the registration form. So we have the registration form first to know the background, the health history, and then during the event, especially during donation collection, which of course we have the kind of mini gathering, because we need people to actually record all the inventories and receive the donations. So we emphasize regarding the cleanliness and also personal hygiene. So we provide them with a face mask. We also provide them with gloves if necessary, if they need to use it. And then we also provide them with hand sanitizers. So every time they enter the, the venue or our storage where we put all our inventories, we first scan um, their temperatures, and also give them hand sanitizers. Um, with regards, if worst case scenario, if there was to be spread during in our event, we will immediately again contact tracing, as mentioned by Ministry of Health. So everyone will get checked and will be quarantined. So everything is followed with the Ministry of Health guidelines. So I hope that will answer your question.
All right, thank you, Afik. Just wondering, we since we have to follow strict guidelines from the government in Brunei, just wondering if in Kenya, what is the SOP procedure that you have to adhere in Kenya, and how do you reduce the risk, Asha? while you were doing your while you were carrying out your food drive? Hello, Asha? It seems like Asha is not there, so we will get back when she comes back. So just now we have Khadija Samad that raised her hand. So Khadija, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, please. Hello,
All right.
can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I would like to ask this question to Shauki. Thank you for sharing just now. Yeah. So my question is, as someone who has no income or nor I am financially independent, what is like our strength as youth, or how else we can contribute as youth, and what we can really offer to the community? The reason I ask is because I'm part of a committee too, social welfare unit in my university. And sometimes people don't really want to participate in volunteering because sometimes it takes money, like we have to have transport, extra budget for logistics and such. So back to my question, how else we can contribute other than having any material costs involved? Is my question clear?
So you're asking how else we can contribute besides monetary means, like besides
Yeah.
giving money, how else can we give back? There's a lot, especially as young people. Like, I remember one of our religious officers in Scott Akmal, he said that if you can't give back in terms of finances, if you're unable to give money or material things, what you can give is your energy, your time, or your ideas. So young people, when you ask me what young people can offer, I was like, well, we can offer so many things. What we're doing right now is something that is a youth-led initiative. This is what we can offer, things like this. We can offer, besides what we can give materialistically, we can give our time, our effort, our energy in volunteering. And if you don't have an idea of what you can do, perhaps what you can do is lend a helping hand, right? I don't know, like there's so many things that as a young person who doesn't have money, I can personally share the same sentiment. I don't have that much money either. I'm a broke student, but what I can do is give my time and effort and energy. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. And I think, like you said, how you're part of the social welfare unit in your university. Is that correct? Hello, Khadija.
Yeah, I'm part of social welfare unit.
I mean, that itself is already contributing back without giving back, without using your money. Like, yeah, definitely transport and everything like that. But that's what's more important is the actions that you do. And I feel like that's something that's definitely, to me, sometimes more valuable, or like cannot be valued in monetary terms anyway. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Can I just add on?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think you also mentioned about how what about volunteers who probably cannot actually attend volunteering events because they don't have transport or their parents cannot support sending them to these venues. What Shauki mentioned just now about giving ideas, that's also a very valuable way of giving back to the community, because not necessarily if you can't give in terms of financial support, if you can't give in terms of physical energy, you can still contribute in terms of your use of social media. I mean, if you're at home, that means you can actually help in terms of sharing information, sometimes even just reposting information shared by NGOs, helping them to promote their events, helping to retweet important information. Those are also small ways that you can do that doesn't cost a lot of money. And of course, for example, like for Green Brunei, we also have interns who just contribute online. She cannot physically be part of our activities because, for example, during this time, because she feels like it might, what do you call that? She has vulnerable family members, so she does not feel safe going out and then coming back home, where she might risk getting her family members infected. So instead of joining our events, she has been helping a lot, doing a lot of online work. So we have volunteers like that who are based in Belait, for example. For them to travel all the way to Bandar just to attend our events might be a bit of a constraint because of transportation issues. So they have been helping a lot to maintain our social media. For example, they have helped to engage our followers through quizzes and coming up with interesting and educational posts. They help us to do research as well. So as a student, as a broke student, in fact, you can still give back by providing expertise and helping to do a lot of the work online. So I hope that helps in terms of giving you ideas on how you can be part of community events still.
All right, thank you, YB. I hope that Shauki's and YB's answered your question, Khadija. So next, we have Munira.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. So I want to ask specifically to Asha. Just wondering, like, what is the volunteerism culture in Kenya? Just want to know the different perspective in Brunei and also in Kenya. That's all.
All right. Asha, are you there?
Hey, I'm here.
All right. Cool. So Munira has a question. Did you manage to hear her question?
No, please just repeat. Sorry.
All right. Munira, do you mind repeating your question again?
Hello. So just wondering, what's the volunteerism culture in Kenya? Because kind of curious, how different is it in Kenya and in Brunei? Yeah.
And you mean like how people start to volunteer, or like how we do it in
How the youth
other
are
areas?
active in the volunteerism, the
Or
type of
the
volunteerism
culture?
there. Yeah, the culture.
Okay, so for us, it's so like even like for example with the food drive is it's people approaching us so that they can help us donate the food. So the culture here is more like open, it's an open space where like if you want to do something, you approach someone and you get on board. And also with volunteerism in Kenya, like I think like all over the world, you don't pay people. It's like if you're passionate about something, is you go and help because you like what they are doing, and your mission and their mission kind of like aligned. So yeah, that's more like the volunteerism culture in Kenya. It's like more open and yeah, inviting to like everyone who's like interested in what you're doing. I don't know if I've answered your question.
All right. Does that answer your question, Moon?
Yep, thank you.
All right. I'm just wondering, I'm a bit curious, Asha. Just want to ask how is what kind of procedures do you have to adhere back in Kenya and while doing volunteering, and how do you reduce the risk while doing volunteering at the same time?
So for us, it's we don't have, for NGOs, it's they have to have like a contract with the volunteer to make sure like, it's within the government set, you can't overwork someone from 8 to 5 and say it's volunteerism. If you have to like set aside a few hours and also like find ways in which you can compensate them, like maybe pay their transport or like give them a per diem, like in monthly. So we like the contract has to go in line with the government, like a government guideline on like what volunteerism is, and they like explain it very well. They say like it's someone offering their time for a specific period of time. And so but it doesn't have a full salary, so it's like whatever the organization can willing to give you, or like whatever you can agree with your organization is what we do down here. So yeah, I think like it's also like the same in Brunei, like there's always like a guideline by the government so that you don't take advantage of people, because like I feel like so many NGOs and governments take advantage of young people's desperation to get jobs and to get like something written on their CV. So for us, it's like limit the time and not also limit the workload to give someone.
All right. I see. All right. Thank you, Asha. That was
Thank you.
a nice answer. All right. We have Munira. Munira?
Hi, it's me again. So, since we're talking about volunteerism, so I want to ask any of the panelists, what are your opinions on the role of youth in volunteerism, and how important is volunteerism to the youth itself?
Do you have anyone that you are directing this question to, or is it for the whole panelists?
For the whole panelists.
Okay, maybe we can have Raima to share, or Afik.
Let's ask Raima first.
All right, Raima. Afik is passing the floor to you.
So the question is, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
It's okay. So, in your opinion, how important is youth in the world of volunteerism, and also how volunteerism is important for the youth? Do you catch that?
So yeah, okay. Since you all know that youth is have more percentage than other, how to say, because in Brunei there are more youngsters than elders, so we are the main population, young population to, I'm sorry. So overall, it's just volunteerism gives us new ideas to everyone. We got. Can you hear me?
No? Yes. Mun?
Okay, Kak. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Like for me, volunteerism is like our own empowerment to connect with this topic. So like we cannot empower someone else or make someone to be empowered. Like it is about ways of we on working and supporting someone, that means they can take control and responsibility for their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like empowering myself to involve in volunteerism, making myself the authority on the whole that is true for me and what I want to do and how I will do to it. And volunteerism is not particularly for specific groups of people. It is anytime an individual or groups of people to pursue what is right and what is uh, even when it is unpopular or uncommon or rejected by the society. It is also when someone presents an idea that is unheard of and represents it confidently, and even while no one are bored with it. So basically, volunteerism can make someone to be better, not just for ourselves, and it can show to other youth out there so that volunteerism is a good thing for our future and for our country. Cuma tu lah. That is all from me.
Yeah, I think I agree to what you said also. Like how our youth plays an important role since we are the asset, as we call it. Yeah.
Maybe we can have Afik to answer as well.
Okay, all right.
To share on your
I'm just going to, regarding the question, how important is volunteerism for the youth in the world? So I will emphasize how important volunteerism for the youth. I started volunteering since I was 13 years old. So back then, when I think of volunteer, I only think of providing water during a marathon and so on and so forth like that. However, as time goes on, the definition of volunteerism become vast. It become a very big definition. So I think volunteerism offers you a lot of opportunities. For example, networking, connectivity with new people, where in the future usually get an opportunity. And then other than that, volunteerism also provides you with new skills such as team management, project management, or even crisis management through project-based or even managing the team itself. So volunteering will taught you a lot. Although people think that volunteer is free, but I'm an advocate that volunteer is not free. Volunteer is paid. However, it doesn't necessarily means being paid in terms of monetary. Volunteer can be paid through as maybe an appreciation gift or certificate perhaps. These skills which you get from volunteerism or volunteering can be translated to your working life in the future. So you can include that inside your CV when you're looking for jobs. And then yeah, I think that's much it from me. Yeah, volunteering offers you a lot. So yeah.
Can I add on to the question?
Yeah, sure.
I think I just wanted to add on to what Raima said earlier, how youth make up most of the population in Brunei and generally in the world as well. I don't know the specific statistics, but I know for a fact that youth make up more of a percentage of the world than any other demographic. Especially in Brunei, where youth is 15 to 40 years old. That's a lot of people in this country. And how important youth is to volunteerism is like in the sheer volume of people in that demographic in youth. If you imagine if all those people were involved in making the world a better place, it's definitely going to do something. It's definitely going to leave an impact. So I think for me personally, youth is super important to volunteerism because that's the perfect demographic for us to really make change. If you take a look at all the really impactful change makers all over the world, your Greta Thunberg, she's like barely a young adult, and she's created so much change and impact in the world when it comes to climate change. The American youth that stand up for whatever's happening there, and that's why youth is super important to volunteerism, because we are the generation that's going to take over next. We are the ones who's going to live through whatever the world's going to be like in the next 10, 20 years. So that's why it's important for youth to be involved in volunteerism, because volunteerism means doing your part for the community and giving back to the world so that you can help shape it into what you want it to be. And despite that, the follow-up question, how important is volunteerism to youth? I'll have to agree, though volunteerism is important to youth, it's not for everyone. Some people may not enjoy volunteering as much as others. Some people may not see it as something that's worth their time, and that's it's. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can't force someone to go to a specific path, and you can't force them to enjoy a specific thing. You can try and expose them to it, but if they don't enjoy it, then you can't really force them to do so. But I feel like it's important to youth. Volunteerism is important to youth, like Afik said, because all the skills you can get, the connections. Basically, for me, I think volunteerism opens up a lot of pathways to great things for young people. It's important to youth because at this stage of our lives, 17, 18, 19, 20, mid 20s, we are still looking for whatever it is we want to do. We're still looking for our way in life. We're still looking for who we are. We're still looking for ourselves. And volunteerism is a great way for us to trial and error, see what makes us feel happy, see what we feel like is great for us. If you feel like you would be suitable for social work or caring for the underprivileged, go into an NGO or volunteer for an event that does that. If you feel like you're more passionate about environmental stuff, go into that. Volunteerism is so broad that it can help you identify what exactly you want to do in life. So I think that's why it's super important for young people, because it's, yeah, like I said, it's a pathway for a lot of great things. It helps you identify who you want to be in the future. And when you're at that stage where when you volunteered a lot, it will help you realize who you are as an individual, what you're great at, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what you're passionate about. At least that's what I can say for myself and countless others of people who have volunteered. I feel like that's why volunteerism is important to young people at this stage of our lives.
Thank you, Shauki. I do agree with Shauki, Afik, and Raima about volunteerism. It's not something that every youth would like it, because we tend to have to work hard and all, and some youth might think it's a waste of time and all, but I feel like volunteerism, there's a reward behind helping other people, and like Raima and Shaki said, we're the population that made up most of we're the part of the population that made up this country, and we're the future as well of the country. So we have to do something in order to help the more underprivileged or the ones that needed our help the most, be it even a small act, or that it doesn't have to be big. So thank you, Afik, Shauki, and Raima for answering Munira's question. So next up in the queue, we have Alisa Sofian.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is in general to the panel. It's about volunteering. Sorry, it's a bit of a stretch, but because I myself have been involved in some charity projects, I was wondering how the target for sending the charity is. Does that make sense? As in, how else can we help the underprivileged other than charity through sending them items and food? Because it's not a bad thing, because we really are lessening their burden by giving them necessities and food. But is there another way to teach and help them earn their own income so they don't eventually depend on financial support from these organizations who help the underprivileged? sort of like the quote, give a man a fish, he'll eat per day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. Something like that. To anyone, to anyone in general.
Alright. So maybe Afik could answer this, or YB.
Let's give it to YB first.
Oh, actually, I was going to pass this to Shauki, but maybe just to quickly just a quick point of view only. Yes, you're right. We shouldn't just look at charity as just giving quick support. Yes, definitely, food and basic necessities are really important for them to survive, for them to be able to sustain themselves. But how it's definitely not a very sustainable way of helping the community. The example that Shauki gave early on during his introduction was actually a very good example about how they empowered single mothers by providing them the job opportunity which is by cooking, and then cooking food that are purchased by the public, which are then distributed to other communities. So that's one very good example of how you can empower those who are underprivileged in a more dignified manner by providing them the skills, by providing them the opportunity. When you're trying to brainstorm for a new project, perhaps that could be an angle that you look for, which is what can you teach the community? What kind of support can you provide for the community? For example, do you have skills that you are able to train them? But most importantly, if you are looking to enable the community to be more independent in the future, you yourself need to commit to that, because it's not something that you can suggest just one day. Oh, like, why don't you do this project? But then you abandon them, and then they might give up because you have introduced something new to them that they're not used to. So if you want to really help the families to succeed, commitment in terms of your support, commitment in terms of your guidance, and of course, it's very important for you to follow up on their progress. And that's really the way to help enable the community to get out of their poverty cycle. Because it's not enough to just provide them with the tools. For example, we've heard stories about how there have been support in terms of providing them with a grass cutting machine, for example, or a motorboat. But if you don't continuously monitor, if you don't continuously guide them how to utilize these tools, they might just end up selling these tools because that's the only way for them to eat. So that's really why continuous engagement is very, very important.
All right. Thank you, YB, for your answer. Afik.
Okay, as for our association, Projek Bina Ukhwah, to actually tackle this, before that, the downfall of providing the recipients with donations, they become too dependent was the donation. So for PBU to actually tackle this, we emphasize three main things, which is economic empowerment, training and education, as well as engagement. For instance, Projek Bina Ukhwah last year held financial workshop for the underprivileged with collaboration with Center of Islamic Banking, Finance and Management, where PBU and CIB FM actually taught the underprivileged how they manage their finance, how they should make use of their finance. And then other than that, as for my unit, Home Betterment Program Unit, we actually focus on identifying dilapidated houses, and we either build or fix the houses or even renovate. So there are 5 steps for Bina Ukhwah Hopro. So first is identification. So we first do the site visit and then do our research regarding the house structure, and economic background, the hygiene of the house, and then we do the plan action, whether we built a new house or renovate or even just a minor fix. And then we'll be having a monitoring and also intervention, whereby we ensure we follow up with the recipients, how they're doing, and then to ensure they are not reliant to our aid or help. So we connect them with companies who offer job opportunities. For instance, just like YB Khairunisa mentioned just now, grass cutting. So we provide them with the apa mesin rumput ni English. So the grass cutter, that thing. So other than that as well, we also during let's say our project Biohopro, we always remind them during the process of renovating their living room or houses. We always emphasize them that they need to keep the cleanliness of the house, and then we also do like monthly checkup with their house, so to ensure they keep the responsibility, and then engagement, of course, connect with our stakeholders, our sponsors. Even recently, after Jelajah Ramadan, our recent event, our collaborator actually offered an opportunity to underprivileged family to work as a barista. So that is a good thing for our recipient who are struggling to find a job. And I think that's much it from PBU. So once we conducted the project, we don't just let go of the recipients. We actually follow up with them and help wherever we can in terms of economic. Um, so yeah, I think that's all from me.
All right. Thank you, Afik. So we have Ajimuddin raising his hand. So Ajimuddin.
I think Atika should go first. She raised earlier than me.
Okay. So Atika, would you like to go first?
Yes, sir. So most of you guys have created community programs and activities like, despite of the obstacles and the challenges. So I've met a number of people who actually have good ideas in solving community issues, but are still afraid to try and implement because they only see what might not work. For example, in COVID, like, oh, we have this restriction, that restriction. So in the end, it got delayed. So this goes for Asha in Kenya and any of the Bruneians. Any tips or inspiration for these potential future volunteers or leaders?
Maybe we can have Asha.
Yes. So I feel like the inspiration for volunteers is for you, like if you feel that you're doing something for your community, or you feel like you're very passionate about something, go for it and do it. For me, like what drives people, like apart from money and other things, is passion. And that's why like you find people like right now, instead of sitting in the house and Netflix, and or just doing their own private things, they're focusing their time to do other things like community work. So for me, I think what I can say is go for something you're very passionate about, and go for something that you would not want, like you want to make it better, or you want to help improve. And that's why, like, I think what drives us the most, because even with this food drive that we're doing in Kibra, no one is funding us, and also like it's something that we have committed our time and everything to it. So that means that we have to give ourselves the energy, we have to give ourselves the drive to continue. So if you're not, like if you're not always asking yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I helping my community? Then you will lose the focus. So the thing is, always ask yourself, why am I doing this? And that's where you find the answer, and that's what will keep you moving. Because you can easily give up from doing the project, but I think like all of us, the panelists, like we have put ourselves on the line to help our community right now, and I feel like it's because we're very passionate about the other things, and there's a why, like there's a reason why we're doing it, and it goes beyond money, it goes beyond our payment, but like.
Thank you, Asha. Maybe we can have one more panelist to give an answer. Would Raima, Afik, Chucky, or YB want to answer?
Oh, what was the question?
The question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So, any tips or inspiration for people who are actually have good ideas, but they are afraid of trying and implementing it because they only see what might not work?
Okay, I think for this, it would be one tip I would give is to find the right people. If you're too afraid to voice it out yourself, find someone that you're comfortable with, someone who may be comfortable voicing it out, and confide to them. Tell them like, hey, I have this idea and I feel like it's gonna go, and don't keep it to yourself. Basically, write it down, really think about it, make it seem like a solid idea. Even if it's like not to the most precise details, at least make it seem feasible, like a viable option for you to do, and then bring it up to someone. It could be anyone, someone you trust, and then go together and find, if you're not able to do it, find someone who is. I've encountered on many occasions where people have had amazing ideas, but they were held back by that fear of what if, fear of the unknown, fear of what could go wrong. The best person you could go to is someone who is an idealist, an optimist, someone who doesn't care about what could go wrong, but someone who can only think about the great implications of what will happen if things do go right. So yeah, I think my advice would be look for the right people. Number one would be write it down. An idea is just an idea if you don't write it down. Plan it out, get the details right, bring it up to someone who has someone you can trust, someone that you can confide in, and then find someone who you know might be able to make this a reality. An optimist, an idealist, someone who has the authority and the reach to do so. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I actually also want to give an answer to the previous question, a very brief answer to the question regarding what we can do besides short-term aid, charity. I feel like I have to answer because my NGO, that's what we strive to do, become the catalyst for poverty eradication. So I feel like it's my duty to answer the question. Um, I've had the privilege of sitting down with the ministry and the minister to talk about poverty in Brunei and what exactly are the problems. Why are people in Brunei still in poverty, despite the fact that we give financial aid, despite the fact that we give zakat? Why are there still people who live in poverty? And during those meetings, we've identified that the problem is like there's quite a few problems, but one of the most prominent ones are the mindset. As mentioned by both Afik and YB Kai, sometimes people who receive financial aid and are given the tools, they don't use those tools right. Yeah, they use it for short-term gratification instead of the long-term. So right now, what the ministry is and what the government wants to do is change that mindset, change the mindset of those who are living in poverty to think about the long term rather than just short-term things, and to be less dependent on these short-term financial aid. So in relation to that, what we can do as NGOs, as volunteers, what we can do in our role is to help educate these families and help them see what they're capable of. Because sometimes they're born into this culture of poverty. They believe that, oh, this is all that I can do. but we have to empower them to show them that no, you are capable of doing way much more. Education plays a vital role here. If you can empower them and encourage them enough to continue their education no matter what, that would be great. So yeah, I think just to cap it all off, the main problem is the mindset. If we can do our best to change the mindset, and give them the tools and encourage them to show them that they're capable of helping themselves instead of us continuously helping them. Yeah, hope that answers the previous question as well and the question before.
Right.
Thank
you.
Can I add on?
Sure, but we'll have to be quick if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. This will be a brief one. So other than mindset, we have to set our self goals. This could be to do something every seconds that scares you, to meet one new person a day, to explore a new part of the city every weekend, or to learn a new language this year. Whatever your goal is, make sure it stretches you beyond the borders of your comfort zone. Make yourself comfortable with diversity, with differences, with trying new things and experiencing a variety of ways of living life. Being a volunteer is an excellent opportunity to embrace the unknown, and in so doing, discovering parts of you and you never know existed. Each moment of every day, you are gifted with the golden opportunity to make something positive. You get like 86,000 plus seconds a day to live inspired, to make a difference, to do anything you choose with your time on this planet. So spend it wisely. Use your time to do good, to help others, to volunteer, to leave a legacy in this life. The more of our time we give to others, the more time we have to spend. So that is all from me.
Thank you, Raima. That was very powerful answer. So we can only take one more question if that's okay to everyone. So we'll have Ajimuddin, and please.
Okay. Actually, I have two questions.
Okay.
I actually wanted to ask Asha and YBK. So I'll ask for Asha first.
All right, go ahead.
So since Asha is doing project in Kenya about a food drive as well, right? So I wanted to ask Asha if can organizations from outside of Kenya, like international organization like from Brunei, can we do collaboration with organization in Kenya? Is it possible to do it like with you or with any other organization in Kenya? Because I also do some kind of food drive, food donation to Cox's Bazar and also to Cambodia. So I would like to know if there's a possibility and what is the procedure, like if an outside organization would want to come into Kenya and do a collaboration with you.
That's a very good question, because also like collaboration is very important, because we've done it with other African countries. So Brunei will be like, outside Africa, that would be very awesome. So for me, I've just on the Zoom group chat, I've put our website, which like you can look at how like, so for collaborations, you can tell me like what specific collaborations you like. Because for us, like how we've collaborated with other people is they've helped us in fundraising, they've helped us in sharing the story about the food drive, and also like, having group conversations like something like this, a Zoom call with other people doing the same thing. So you can tell me like how specifically you would like to collaborate. I have also shared my email, which you can write to me anytime on how we can move from here. But I think like the only thing is you just have to send me like an email and we can move it from there. but we're very open to collaborations and working like with different people, because also like, you know, right now we need team effort and the help we can right now.
Sure. And the second question is actually for YB Kai. Pendek saja lah. So basically straight to the point. Since your organization is concerning about environment, so can like right now during the COVID moment, we use a lot of like you said, disposable. So from an environmental organization, how do you handle like when people have this negative mindset of an environmental organization, but using disposable equipments? That's
all right. So we're actually quite surprised that we have not received a single criticism about the use of plastic. I mean, how hypocritical it may seem, because I think we it's actually quite an obvious reason behind it, which is we're trying to ensure that hygiene and safety comes first. I mean, during this trying times, it's quite what do you call that? We have to understand that hygiene and safety comes first, and it's sort of like something that you really cannot help at this point, because it's we can't really avoid the use of disposables at this time. So what we still can do on an individual level is still to practice our eco-friendly habits. But when it comes to running projects, when it comes to distributing food supplies, and even when we produce the face shields, these have been disposable. These have been using disposable materials, unfortunately. Of course, that's why we try to balance it by organizing cleanups, like I mentioned earlier. So we have done the river cleanup where we collected a lot of plastic from the rivers and the parking lots. And we are also planning to organize another cleanup at the beach. So we try to do this event. We try to do these two events, bearing in mind we still have some social and physical restrictions that we need to abide to. So it does not really stop us from organizing events. We just have to adjust them to fit the situations that we are currently facing.
All right, thank you, IB, for answering Ajimuddin's question. So, since it's already the end, we're reaching the end of the session. So I would like to thank all of the participants for signing up to our panel series tonight. And once again, thank you for to our panelists for being here tonight to share with us their wonderful stories during this global pandemic. I hope that everyone has managed to learn some valuable insights and also some inspirations from our panelists throughout this whole session. And also do tune in for our next session, our panel series, through our social media platforms. And also we will be sending the highlights to all the participants' email. So thank you for coming tonight, and we apologize for the pass of the time of the session. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.